For some of you, this music probably just triggered a wave of nostalgia. Suddenly, you're a kid again, eagerly waiting for New Year's Eve while your mom and grandma bustle around the kitchen, preparing buckets of Olivia salad and dressed herring. The air smells of festive cooking, guests are about to arrive, and you're sitting in the living room, half watching Irony of Fate on the television. If you didn't grow up with this tradition, let me explain. Irony of Fate is the Eastern European equivalent of Home Alone, or It's a Wonderful Life, a holiday staple that became a tradition to watch every single New Year. But here's the question: why is this beloved festive movie about the New Year's Eve and not Christmas Eve? After all, Christmas is one of the biggest celebrations in the world, with countless films dedicated to it, celebrated even in countries that don't observe the holiday. The answer is both simple and complex. While many of the Eastern European countries are Christian, most follow Orthodox Christianity, which usually celebrates Christmas on the 7th of January. You see, all Christians originally celebrated Christmas on January 7th, but in 1582 a new Gregorian calendar was introduced to fix inaccuracies in the original Julian calendar. However, not all Christians adopted the new system, and while Catholic and Protestant denominations now celebrate Christmas on December 25th, most Orthodox denominations stuck with the original calendar. Besides, Christmas wasn't commercialized like it is in the West. It remained a deeply religious holiday in the Eastern European region. In fact, after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, the USSR banned Christmas and other religious celebrations as part of the government's push for atheism. Even the Christmas tree, once a cherished symbol, was outlawed for nearly 18 years, seen as a bourgeois religious tradition incompatible with Soviet ideology. It wasn't until 1935, under Stalin's regime, that these policies were slightly relaxed. The Christmas tree returned, although not as a symbol of Christianity, but as a secular New Year's tree. Stripped of its religious roots, it became the centerpiece of Soviet New Year celebrations, often topped with a red star instead of the Star of Bethlehem. But banning religion didn't mean people stopped believing. My own grandmother, who was born in 1949 during Stalin's reign, was secretly baptized, which was quite a risky act during that time, punishable by the government. For many, the spirituality, wonder, and sense of renewal that Christmas once embodied shifted to the New Year's, which became the only non-political holiday allowed in the Soviet Union. Because, let's be honest, holidays in the Soviet Union were either political or political. The New Year's Eve turned into a time for family, hope, and unity. A magical night when the clock struck midnight, glasses of champagne were raised, and millions across the globe shared the same wish: happiness in the year to come. And the movie Irony of Fate encapsulates all of that. This 1975 rom-com was directed by Eldar Rязанов, one of the most beloved Soviet filmmakers, known for his sincere and often satirical portrayals of the socialist realities of the time. The movie begins with an animated sequence that humorously critiques the uniformity of Soviet-style blockhouses. Then a voiceover follows, saying that back in the day, arriving to a new city felt like a unique experience, but now all the buildings look identical and even the streets have the same names, which plays a crucial role in the film's plot. The story takes place on New Year's Eve and centers on Zhenya, a middle-aged bachelor who is preparing to celebrate the holiday with his girlfriend. Anxiety fills the air as both his mother and his girlfriend push him to propose this New Year's Eve.
И потом, если ты сейчас не женишься, ты не женишься никогда.
Zhenya clearly loves his girlfriend, but he's unsure if he's ready to spend the rest of his life with her. Trying to unwind, Zhenya joins his friends in a sauna, a rather unusual New Year tradition they've had for years. In the sauna, they throw a farewell party for their friend Pavel, who is about to leave for Leningrad. The friends offer celebrating Zhenya's upcoming proposal as well, and the group ends up completely drunk.
Пристегнулись простынями, от винта под крылом.
In the 1970s, plane tickets weren't personalized, and with Pavel and Zhenya completely incapacitated, the two remaining friends, barely coherent, try to piece together what were they celebrating and which one of them is heading to Leningrad.
Кинем жребий. Мы не будем полагаться на случай.
In their drunken state, the two stories completely blur together, and they decide that it must be Zhenya who is going to Leningrad to propose to his fiancée. They drag the passed out Zhenya onto the plane, and 2 hours later, he lands in Leningrad. Completely blacked out and disoriented, Zhenya doesn't even notice the difference, because it's dark outside and every Soviet building looks the same. He gives the taxi driver his street address,
Ресурсный строитель, дом 25, квартира 12, 4.
Хоть пятый.
and as expected, there is a generic house on a generic street in Leningrad that match his own in Moscow. His generic key fits the generic door, and he collapses into the apartment, oblivious to the difference. After all, the furniture in the Soviet Union was just as generic. The owner of the apartment turns out to be a middle-aged teacher, Nadia. She notices a drunk stranger in her bed and tries to wake him up by watering him from a teapot.
Ой, ой, так хорошо.
But he stubbornly insists that he's at home and she's the one who broke into his apartment, until they both realize that they're talking about the same addresses, just in different cities. When her fiancé arrives and sees a drunk stranger in his girlfriend's bed, he becomes insanely jealous.
Толкачи какие.
Почему ты мне не веришь?
Честно, почему нам не веришь ты сам?
Этот тип противен мне так же, как тебе.
Ну, конечно, я сам себе противен.
Though the scene is played for comedy, a deeper look reveals that it hints at a much colder side of Ippolit and his relationship with Nadia, one that actually borders on emotional manipulation. You see, the character of Ippolit embodies societal conformity. He's successful, polite, well-dressed, drives a nice car, and earns a good living, which we can see from the gift he gives to Nadia, a bottle of French perfume, an incredible luxury in Soviet times. And yet there is a lack of sincerity in his actions. It feels as though he's just following a script. Even when he proposes to Nadia, he buttons up his suit as if shielding himself from the emotional vulnerability of the moment. Not long after that, Zhenya decides to return to ask for money for a ticket back home. This further enrages Ippolit, who eventually storms out. When Zhenya finally manages to reach his girlfriend on the phone and tries to explain the absurd situation, she also doesn't believe him. This leaves both Zhenya and Nadia miserable and heartbroken on New Year's Eve, the most important night of the year. Initially harboring understandable anger, they gradually warm up to each other, opening themselves to both the growing connection and the unpredictable fate that brought them together. Nadia turns out to be a kind of mirror reflection of Zhenya. She too is middle-aged, unmarried, and trying to seize her last chance at starting a family. Mirrors are actually a recurring theme in this film, not only in parallel situations, but in the visual language as well. This motive highlights how different characters react to similar, mirrored situations, revealing the contrasts in their core values. Unlike their original relationships, defined by Ippolit's jealousy or Galia's domineering nature, their new bond is grounded in equality and mutual respect. Their interactions, full of soul and humor, allow them to be themselves for the first time, igniting a spark of adventure in their otherwise monotonous lives.
Знаете, я чувствую, что я, становлюсь каким-то другим человеком. Более
наглым.
Нет, смелым. Более
Бесцеремонным.
решительным. Более
развязным.
Не угадываете.
Although there is a clear spark of romance between Nadia and Zhenya, they feel lost and confused, afraid to risk their stable but unfulfilling relationships for the uncertainty of love at first sight.
Надо уметь сдерживать чувства.
Зачем? Не слишком ли часто в жизни мы сдерживаемся?
The movie is structured in such a way that just when Zhenya and Nadia begin to embrace this wild adventure, they are immediately pulled back into their everyday lives by a series of absurd events. The production has its quirks. For example, Barbara Brylska, who played Nadia, is actually a Polish actress, best known internationally for her sensual and often provocative roles. And although she spoke Russian, her accent was way too noticeable and required redubbing. Interestingly, the actress voicing Nadia is the same actress who plays one of her friends, and the songs she performs in the film were sung by the queen of Russian pop, Alla Pugacheva. Another challenge the production faced was the lack of snow in Leningrad that year. To recreate the wintry atmosphere, they bought out all the cotton available in local pharmacies. Despite its modest budget and minor imperfections, such as a famous typo in the opening credits, the film remains universally beloved. Its enduring appeal lies not only in its humor, but also its inspiring message. It's possible to break from the monotony of everyday life and to live by your own rules.
Как скучно мы живем. У нас пропал дух авантюризма. Мы перестали лазить в окна к любимым женщинам. Мы перестали делать большие хорошие глупости. Ай, какая гадость, это ваша заливная рыба.